Hi good people, welcome to my little fashion corner. I am so happy to see you back in fashion history class. Keen to hear about another legendary luxury fashion brand. You may have seen their influence and designs without even noticing. Schiaparelli doesn't have a house monogram. That would make it more brain engraved friendly. But let me tell you all about the history, incredible tailoring, shocking new waves, and its resurgence to fame or notoriety. This video is brought to you by my own opinion, research, copious amounts of coffee and tea, and fear that I am starting to annoy people in my real life with my lectures. This is an unofficial but as accurate as possible history lesson put together from my best attempts at research and my own opinions. I'm sure had Schiaparelli been involved, there would have been corrections, insights, fun little bits and bobs added prior to me hitting this record thing. If Schiaparelli's PR department happens to see this and wishes we had spoken as much as I do, please do reach out because I am not opposed to making my first update video anytime. Now this one will end up a long one. I wrote 8 pages of notes whilst preparing the script. So feel free to chuck me on podcast mode and make sure you stay hydrated and let's do this. Now first and foremost, I understand the brand name looks slightly terrifying. Just give it a go a few times and it'll catch up with you. I also strongly recommend leaning forward and using the hand movement to help with the emphasis on penultimate syllable, which is just a fancy word for second to last. Schiaparelli. Now talking about House of Schiaparelli for me means splitting it into 3.5 eras. Let me explain. Chronologically as follows. Elsa Schiaparelli's era, revival attempts, and Daniel Roseberry's era. However, the era of Elsa Schiaparelli can be split into one and then some. Schiaparelli the couturier and Schiaparelli the parfumesse. Also, the name is Italian and a lot of the terminology in fashion is French, and I do apologize if I pronounce everything in Italian because it will get messy. Let's talk about Elsa Schiaparelli's background before we dive into the fashions. She was born 1890 into a wealthy Italian aristocratic family, lived her child and teenagehood in Rome, and had a fun nickname, Schia, because Elsa is very long. Her father, Celestino Schiaparelli, dean of the university in Rome, where Elsa then studied philosophy, studied Islamic world in the era of Middle Ages, and was an authority on Sanskrit and curator of medieval manuscripts, which I think is neat. Moreover, because it will be relevant a bit later in this video, Celestino's brother, Elsa's uncle, Giovanni is mostly noted for the discovery of the so-called Martian canals. However, he was an esteemed astronomer and a science historian, and it is said that Elsa often studied heavens with her uncle. And just as an anecdote, her father's cousin Ernesto was the discoverer of the tomb of Nefertari. How great! Older, but still young Elsa was pressured by her father to marry a wealthy Russian aristocrat, and she packed her bags, moved to London, and found herself a job there. Now, this part of Elsa's history is not entirely significant for you to get the fashions, but I think it's quite interesting. Elsa, 23-year-old, meets and marries she married a con artist, okay? A very charismatic but still a charlatan, Wilhelm. He is his own entire rabbit hole, but we are going to tread lightly. His expertise was anything and everything. A criminalist, a doctor, psychic. However, the newlyweds lived off Elsa's family wealth and dowry. Wilhelm got convicted for fortune-telling, which was illegal at that time, and the couple leaves for United States in early 1916. Their USA period is wild, but I'll try to be brief. Husband, Willem, gets flagged by FBI as pro-German by association, then as Bolshevik by association, then he admits support of the Russian Revolution and association with an anarchist. Elsa incriminated herself teaching Italians in Boston on Bolshevism and having knowledge to assemble explosive devices, and I'm not making any of this up. Ultimately, They were not prosecuted nor deported, deemed loosely interpreted, tough but not dangerous. 15 June 1920, Elsa gave birth to a baby girl and Willem leaves them both. Elsa is struggling with emotions, motherhood. Her daughter got diagnosed with polio. In 1922, Elsa changed her daughter's surname to Schiaparelli and returned to France as she was afraid her husband would try to gain custody of Gogo. In 1924, Elsa Schiaparelli finally divorced Willem, who, and again, I'm not making this up, was murdered in Mexico in 1928, circumstances unknown. If you're interested in more detailed story of that part of her life, her autobiography is out there. Lore on Willem is out there on the interwebs. It's a lot. The Britain, France, USA period was quite useful to her though, as she made a name for herself, gained a lot of powerful friends and made some solid contacts. And we're back in Paris. Elsa finds herself in a very flattering social position, still had access to her family's wealth. However, she wanted to make her own income, her own reputation, her own name, establishing Elsa Schiaparelli. Schiap has no training or skills on clothing constructions or tailoring, but she was very talented. She had an eye for combining fashion and art. We'll get to that. And she knew a lot of good people. Her early work is inspired by Paul Poiret, who promoted freedom of movement for a modern, sophisticated woman. Schiaparelli refers to him as a dear friend and a generous mentor. 1926 opens her first version of her fashion house, and whilst it scored good reviews and appeared in Vogue, it closed its door almost right away. In 1927, Schiaparelli, the brand, is officially established as Elsa introduces a collection of knitwear using a special double-layered stitch created by Armenian refugees. This trompe-l'oeil style of clothing became very popular, especially this bulk sweater that made her business truly take off. Schiaparelli's first designs were conservative and functional. Then in 1928, Schiap expands to include bathing suits, ski wear and linen dresses. In 1931, she includes evening wear using Robert Alsperrier silk, who was also supplying to Chanel, Christian Dior, and Yves Saint Laurent at that time, and more. With both the collections rapidly expanding and gaining more and more fans, Schiaparelli became highly competitive to House of Chanel, which was founded in 1910, for 17 years earlier. Coco and Elsa were their own greatest rivals, and whilst Coco Chanel was famous for her little black dress, Elsa Schiaparelli tempted women, combining art and fashion, creating colorful, bold clothes, empowering them essentially. Shocking, as we learn. The jewelry was also contrasting. Chanel pieces were more subdued. Schiaparelli created this extravaganza of pieces and shape before unseen. By 1932, Schiaparelli was employing 400 people, and in 1935 goes on acquiring the renowned salon at 21 Place Vendôme, former Hotel de Fontpertuis, which House of Schiaparelli owns to date. That salon got rechristened as Schiap Shop, and her work studios consisted of 98 rooms. 1940 marks France's declaration of war on Germany, and Schiaparelli featured a brown trench coat and camouflage printed taffeta in her designs. Later that year, Elsa left to give a lecture in the United States and stayed there until the end of occupation. In contrast to Coco Chanel, who lived in Nazi-occupied Paris in Hotel Ritz. Rather than designing, Elsa volunteered in Bellevue Hospital, and her associates oversaw House of Schiaparelli's designs. As one would presume, everything was different post-war. On the rise were more conformed, yet modern looks by Cristobal Balenciaga and Christian Dior, who changed the world with his new look, most importantly, the iconic bar jacket. Schiaparelli's designs continued to decline, and in 1954 the house declared bankruptcy and closed Schiap Shop store, entering her very comfortable fashion retirement. Coincidentally, 1954 is the year Coco Chanel returned to her business. 3 years later, Elsa Schiaparelli would find herself founding Parfums Schiaparelli and would go on promoting and giving lectures about perfumes. So what made Schiaparelli so successful that it shook the House of Chanel? In my opinion, it was the ability to bring fashion and art together. Enter surrealism. Here's how André Breton, leader of a new grouping of poets and artists in Paris, who defined surrealism in his Surrealist Manifesto from 1924 as follows. Pure psychic automatism, by which one proposes to express either verbally, in writing, or by any other manner the real functioning of thought. dictation of thought in the absence of all control exercised by reason, outside of all aesthetic and moral preoccupation. Not helpful? Well, same. And in the spirit of research for this, I've looked up the definition of surrealism for kids, and my goodness, was I not an artsy kid. Still am not. Here's how the Collins Dictionary defines it. Surrealism is a style in art and literature in which ideas, images, and objects are combined in a strange way, like in a dream. Thank you, Collins Dictionary. That was most helpful. Schiaparelli collaborated and co-designed together with some of the most prominent names of that era that she knew from her social circles. By mid-1930s, she was further collaborating with Man Ray and introducing new art/fashion with Salvador Dalí, Jean Cocteau, and Leonor Fini. Putting her learned tailoring skills, natural elegance, passion, and boldness, combining with her eye for art, collaborating with artists and transforming it into new, bold, revolutionary fashion is what grew her stardom, as well as a star list of clients, including, but not limited to, the actress Mae West, an aristocrat by birth and marriage, fashion icon, socialite, and heiress to the singer sewing machine's empire, Daisy Fellowes, Zsa Zsa Gabor, Katharine Hepburn, Greta Garbo, and many, many others. Let's have a look at some of Elsa Schiaparelli's most iconic designs, in no particular order. The Lobster Dress, 1937. Undoubtedly Schiaparelli's most iconic design, inspired by Dalí's series of lobster telephones. Dalí drew the initial lobster motif, which was then printed onto the silk organza dress by master silk designer Alexandre Sachet. The dress was ahead of its time, blurring the lines between art and fashion amid the surrealist movement, and was first worn by Wallis Simpson, the Duchess of Windsor, who was known for her eccentric style. For fans of the successful Netflix series The Crown, it's this lady. For those who don't watch The Crown, this is Wallis Simpson. Shocking pink, 1937. Schiaparelli made pink hot before Barbie-core was a thing. Shocking, as she truly wanted to shock with her unique designs among conservative wartime fashion. Marilyn Monroe's Diamonds Are the Girl's Best Friend dress and Zsa Zsa Gabor in Moulin Rouge are the very representation of shocking pink. Speaking of firsts, Schiaparelli popularized zippers in high fashion, as well as designed some of the first ever separate garments for women. She was one of the first designers to develop the wrap dress before Diane von Furstenberg reinvented the iconic style in the 1970s. And because she was the naughty one, during Prohibition, Schiaparelli designed her first evening dress with a jacket that included a hidden pocket for a flask. The Shoehead, 1938. Another Dalí collaboration inspired by his selfie, a photo of himself wearing his wife's slipper on his head. The Skeleton Dress, 1938. In case you haven't heard, Schiaparelli and Dalí collaborated a lot, and Dalí's paintings feature skeletal form quite a bit. The Skeleton Dress is my personal favorite, and it can be seen featured in modern day Schiaparelli designs. The Zodiac Collection, 1938. Remember us talking about Elsa's uncle, the astronomer? Big influence. Not only the Big Dipper was her personal good luck charm, these incredibly ornate garments, embroidered, beaded, inspired by astrology and celestial elements. This collection is said to include some of the most distinguished designs of the 20th century. The Hall of Mirrors jacket, 1938. The jacket features 2 panels of mirrored mosaics across the breasts, in reference to the Versailles Galerie de Glace, which features 21 mirrors throughout its gilded halls. And special mention, accessories. Elsa became known for her extra accessories: belts, buttons, costume jewelry, hats and gloves. Her buttons were loud and weird, cricket shape for example, and the red nail polish gloves inspired by Man Ray's photograph of Picasso painting women's hands to create the illusion of wearing gloves. Parfum Schiaparelli. See, it's difficult, French and Italian. Just like in fashion, blurring lines between genders and designing trousers for women, Schiap was also a revolutionary when it came to her perfumes. In 1928, Elsa Schiaparelli released her first perfume as the Schiaparelli. It's said it was very much a sporty scent with iris notes and very much catering to both men and women. Or Snuff, a revolutionary men's fragrance, a Marguerite-inspired crystal smoking pipe that appealed to women too. The unisex concept was just important to her, explains Schiaparelli's Cedric Adon. Always thought that women could do things that were traditionally reserved for men. Shocking, the perfume, came in a bottle shaped like Mae West's figure, who ads to promote said perfume, also very much on the shocking side, pushing it and bringing sexuality to advertisements. In my opinion, also trying to give women power over their own femininity, sexuality. And speaking of this, it was revolutionary, whether people wanted such revolution or not. Elsa was not trying to promote that women are feminine or here for men's pleasure. In my opinion, Schiap was very much about to be and or wear whatever you want to make you. Also, it wasn't necessarily about sex, but just about pushing those boundaries, demonstrating women can feel like a dress and a sweet perfume, or not. Take a set of showgirls' legs, a skirt pull around the feet for a perfume called Zut, the French word for damn. In the early 50s, she infused shocking with chlorophyll to create a green chloral cologne meant to restore freshness. Working as an odor destroyer, however, science was able to prove that it only desensitized the olfactory nerve endings in your nose, so you were still smelling an odor, just not full strength, sort of dull. The last perfume I'm going to mention is Le Roi Soleil, released in 1946 to celebrate the end of World War II. It came in Baccarat crystal bottle, designed by Salvatore Dali. Surprise, surprise. Portraying the surrealist version of Ocean's Wave and a gold sun dotted with swallows. Dali also designed the perfume's case, a giant scallop shell, and painted the ads. Elsa Schiaparelli says in her biography that Wallis Simpson, Duchess of Windsor, prized hers as a work of art that replaced the Duke of Windsor's, the man who abdicated British throne for her, his photograph, on her vanity table. But I'm sure she was just being cheeky. Elsa was a marketing genius. Look, there is no other way to put it. Elsa Schiaparelli knew how to promote her passion, which was her work. In 1934, Schiaparelli launched her first collection of perfumes released at once. 3 glass bottles designed to be worn morning, noon and night, assuring that women have Schiaparelli at the forefront of their mind at every moment of their days. And why get 1 when you can get 3, right? Then in 1943, Shocking Radiance debuted as a set of 4 fragrant oils for the body, face, lips and lids to sort of like put on a quick scented sheen. And then there were many ways of these Shocking's reinvention. Shocking bath sponges, a pink paper tube filled with tiny discs that bloom into scented washcloths, perfumed clips, hats and hairpins, naturally all absolute hits. Look, we're almost 3,000 words in. This is your reminder to stay hydrated. Maybe put some SPF on that gorgeous face of yours. Enter New Schiaparelli. In 2007, a gentleman of the name Diego della Valle bought the rights to Maison Schiaparelli brand and perfumes company. However, not much happened until 2013 when Christian Lacroix got appointed to show his vision for Schiaparelli. Just in terms of housekeeping, House Schiaparelli was accepted to Fédération de la Haute Couture et de la Mode in 2017, but was a guest member until then. In July 2013, Lacroix showed an 18-piece collection at the Musée des Décoratifs in Paris. The collection probably wasn't the exact vision of Schiaparelli's new owner, because later that year, in September 2013, Marco Zanini's appointment was announced. Zanini was quite popular in the world of fashion, respected and leading the French brand Rochas at that time. Zanini related the revival of House of Schiaparelli to a startup, proclaimed he would like to truly honor Elsa Schiaparelli, but not to fall in the trap of caricature. He showed 2 collections and Schiaparelli announced his exit in November 2014. April 2015 came with another announcement and another big name, Bertrand Guillon, who has not only studied to become a couturier, most recently worked under Givenchy himself, and after his passing under John Galliano at Givenchy. Guillon also previously worked at Alexander McQueen, Christian Lacroix and Valentino. What a resume. Guillon stayed until April 2019, and I believe he's currently at Dior as part of Maria Grazia Curie's team. In April 2019, we'd welcome Daniel Roseberry. House of Schiaparelli of Roseberry. It is said that Daniel Roseberry is the first American designer to lead a French couture house, but I don't think that's true, as J. Jackson was appointed as Jean-Louis Cherret head designer in 1968, making him not only the first American to lead a French couture house, but also the first African American who happened to be queer as well. Oh, fantastic. In the 60s, 70s. So that's an extracurricular activity for me to dive into. You stay tuned. That aside, when Roseberry joined Schiaparelli, he mentioned he'll draw on the spirit of Elsa Schiaparelli, which was refreshing to hear in contrast to previous quite literal references. Daniel Roseberry was born in 1985 in Plano, Texas, into a deeply religious family. He traveled the world on Christian missions, considered entering the ministry himself. However, when he returned to the United States, he enrolled New York's Fashion Institute of Technology, leaving after 2 years to work at one of my favorites, Thom Browne. He spent 10 years there, rising to become the head of designs, working on both women's and men's collections. Obviously, Mr. Della Valle doesn't really consult me before he makes any business or personal decision, so I can't speak for him or what led him to hire Roseberry. I feel like he was looking for the perfect match who can not only produce the new shocking collections, but also truly build on Elsa Schiaparelli's legacy. I believe it was because of Roseberry's understanding and the experience in tailoring, as well as his pure talent, but also demonstrating that he can truly follow the footsteps of Elsa Schiaparelli and continue to integrate art and fashion, creating icons and influence. That sounded redundant. Was it redundant? Sounded like a lot. Was it a lot? To me, the similarity between Roseberry and Schiaparelli is their interest in experimenting, pushing the conformity, the tailoring boundaries, and finding new in old. Daniel Roseberry often experiments with new or unlikely fabrics. His start at Schiaparelli was a bit toned down, subdued, reviving tailoring and icons, but then, very controversially so, he started working the illusion of having Elsa back. Let's see some of Daniel Roseberry's iconic designs and see how his reputation was sealed. Celine Dion on Jimmy Fallon, wearing a gathered sleeve top in double organza paired with a nude pleated wall skirt. Honestly, whilst not being the biggest fan of asymmetry, I find this dress impeccable. Kim Kardashian West, at that time, a molded six-pack leather bodice and green silk velvet skirt. I don't know whose idea was the six-pack. Lady Gaga at President-elect at that time, Biden's inauguration. Lady Gaga wore a fitted jacket in navy cashmere, skirt in wash red silk fade with a gilded dove of peace brooch. Daniel Roseberry commented, "As an American living in Paris, this ensemble is a love letter to the country I miss so dearly and to a performer whose artistry I have so long admired. Maison Schiaparelli is honored to have this chance to dress the iconic Lady Gaga on this historic inauguration day. God bless Lady Gaga and God bless America." Cardi B. Cardi B wore Schiaparelli's Spring-Summer 2021 haute couture jewelry, designed by Daniel Roseberry, to announce her pregnancy. Bella Hadid in Cannes. Bella Hadid wore a long-sleeve dress in wool crepe with a low-cut neckline and a gilded brass necklace in the shape of trompe-l'oeil lungs, imagery of the lung circulatory system, adorned with rhinestones. Kylie Jenner. Kylie Jenner wore a black velvet bustier dress adorned with an embroidered lion in hand-sculpted foam, wool and silk or fur, and hand-painted to look as lifelike as possible. Doja Cat. Doja Cat wore a red silk faux bustier and a hand-knitted skirt with lacquered wooden beads and 30,000 Swarovski crystals applied by hand, courtesy of Pat McGrath. Pat effing McGrath herself. I don't know much about makeup, but I know she's a ledge. Frankly, we've been seeing a Schiaparelli flood. If you're interested in seeing more, there's a neat little tab called News on Schiaparelli's website, and you can see all these dresses that are coming from their workshop. Other fans and clients of Roseberry's Schiaparelli are Beyoncé, Emilia Clarke, Michelle Obama, Noah Cyrus, Ashley Graham, Kate Blanchett, Adele, Tilda Swinton, Clotilde Corot, Dr. Joe Biden, and many, many others. Elsa Schiaparelli's work is or was on display at several art museums including the Costume Institute, and is highly priced as her impact on fashion is undeniable. Schiaparelli's fearless approach to design helped to pave the way for other avant-garde designers that would come after her. From her boundary-pushing collaborations with artists like Dali and Jean Cocteau to her techniques and use of color, Schiaparelli changed the face of fashion forever. Most importantly, her designs challenge social norms and the definition of femininity. Daniel Roseberry is paving his own path while simultaneously paying homage to vision and values of the founder and soul of Schiaparelli. Beautiful, sophisticated designs that are becoming increasingly more popular. And that's for both their haute couture designs and ready-to-wear, as their ready-to-wear collection could be considered semi-couture. Roseberry is combining traditional with new or unpopular, demonstrating that you don't need a house monogram to be iconic. Well, that is for today. I can only believe you've enjoyed this video if you made it this far. You just heard 3053 words from me in this video, and good on you! Kindly like and subscribe if you haven't already. The algorithm really enjoys that. I appreciate you. You're the realest, you're incredible, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Until the next time, bye!